Have you ever had a conversation with someone who didn't understand why you wanted to go freelance? That happened to me this Thanksgiving. This week on the vlog, I wanted to talk a little bit about really this tension that I've seen over the last probably week or two, just in my own world. I've had several conversations, not just the one on Thanksgiving, but several conversations where the people that I'm talking with are pretty negative towards this idea of going out on your own, freelance, starting your own thing. If you've faced this before, if you've heard it from other people in your own life as you've shared this dream of pursuing freelance, I just want you to know you're not alone. I've been doing my own thing now for just about 3 years, coming up on a 3-year anniversary of that, actually in the next couple weeks, which is super exciting to me. I feel like that's an accomplishment. It's not always been easy, and so to get to this point feels like a major victory. But even now, even after there's been a stretch of things working, so many people around me are pretty negative about the idea of freelance. So you're not alone if that's something that you're hearing, especially if you haven't yet made the jump. Making the jump is often the part that most people are kind of angsty about. They are, I don't know if they're against it necessarily. I think there's just this general sense of, I don't get it. I don't understand why you would take on so much risk. The big concerns that people elevate are, if you don't have enough clients and you're not making money, there's no guarantee that you're going to get paid. And while I understand those things, and man, believe me, I feel those things. I'm actually in a season right now where things are tight and we're kind of figuring out ways to stretch and making unconventional decisions, and it feels scary at times. That's real. And so I don't want to say that jumping into freelance is, unicorns and rainbows all the time. But I do want to emphasize some of those good things. I've been reflecting on those this week, and so I want to share them with you. If maybe you're facing a lot of resistance, the people around you, it feels like maybe they don't believe in you. And I think I want to separate this, because this was important for me this week. I had to separate these ideas. Me choosing to go freelance or go out on my own, it's not an indicator of worth. It's not an indicator of value. My identity's not in that. And when people don't support freelance or this decision to have my own business, it doesn't mean that they're not supporting me. It means that that decision is complicated for them. They wouldn't take on that risk. They wouldn't take on that uncertainty. They wouldn't feel comfortable in that decision. And okay, great. I feel comfortable with it. And I think it's worth kind of addressing, why am I comfortable? Why are you comfortable? Why do you want this? What is it that drives you towards this objective? And this is a little bit of why in the first vlog I shared why it's so important to know your why. For me, thinking back to my own story and kind of what put us into this position, I think it's helpful for me to go back to that all the time, really. But I think that this week I've really been thinking a lot about the upsides of freelance. And so that's what I want to talk about. I want to share those, just the things that have been on my mind. I'd love to know for you, what are the things that you want? Maybe you're already freelancing. What are the things that you love? What are the things that you've gotten from freelance, the upside? And then I also want to kind of elevate the idea of community. Community is so important. It's been critical for me in my journey. Part of what I'm actually working toward with what I'm doing here with this jump to freelance is building a community. And so if that's something that's interesting to you, I'd love to share that with you. I'd love to have you be a part of that. It's going to be more than just a group on Facebook, but it's going to have some educational content, things that were really important for me. I'm really framing it as kind of a mentorship group, but like a group mentorship. So it's a community of people all pursuing the same thing. So community is really important. So I want to mention that as well, just because I've been reflecting on those things this week. But the upsides for me, the big one is family. My kids are in this era of growing up where it's really nice to be able to spend time with them. I look back and I think, man, I always tried to be, available for my kids or invest in my kids' lives. The real kind of revelation for me was during COVID. I was working a job that I was continuing to work. It was remote, but I was continuing to do work. I was over some teams that were pretty critical to what we were doing in the organization I was on staff at. I worked 21 consecutive 12-hour days. 21 in a row. not only just was that a lot of work, but that was in the midst of a season when my family was struggling like everybody else with uncertainty and who knows what's going on. And I realized that nobody cared, that nobody even knew that I was putting in that much work to keep things afloat in the organization. When I would have conversations with other people, I would say, hey, this is a thing that we can do to be helpful and to really kind of move the ball down the field in the midst of this season of uncertainty. And I was constantly met with resistance. And it was at that point that I realized, oh, these people around me don't care at the same level about doing the things that I'm doing. And me caring meant that I was taking on more of a burden and more of a workload than other people around me. And that's all fine and good. I know you can say, oh, that's your decision. You should or shouldn't have done that, whatever. But the real catch for me was I didn't get paid anymore. And it's not all about the money. But on some levels, it doesn't make sense that somebody, let's say there are 5 people on the staff that you're working on the team or in the organization. If all of you are doing the same amount of work, then it makes sense that there's a degree of equity that's happening. But when you have these people who are overachieving, they're not getting rewarded for that. And I think for me, I began seeing that it was costing me not just money, not just if I served a lot of clients really well, I could get paid more money. That's an attractive idea. But it was actually costing me time with family. And I think that's the thing that really, for me, that's been the upside of freelance. Has there been financial stress? Absolutely. Has there been uncertainty? Yeah. Is there uncertainty if teams are getting laid off? Yeah, we've seen a lot of that over the last couple of years. And so for me, the upside of being able to use my time for the things that I value, that's been the biggest benefit by far. And so midday, usually, in the middle of the day, my wife will say, hey, you want to run to Starbucks? Yeah, I can. And I do want to. Let's go do that. And so we'll get this little midday mini date where we drive to Starbucks, even if I don't get anything. It's just nice to be able to get out, clear my head a little bit, go on a drive, spend time with my wife, and then there you go, back to work. And on days where I have no meetings in the morning, take a casual morning. One of the things I do in the spring and in the summer when the weather's more enjoyable in the morning, I'll have a cup of coffee, eat my breakfast outside, we have a little deck. We're in a townhouse, and so a little deck outside. And so I get to eat leisurely. I get to start my day later and then work later. I could never do that in a workplace. So there's all these little pieces of flexibility that I'm getting that I'm not even sure I can articulate how much they have benefited my life. Mentally, I feel much more clear-headed. I feel like I'm doing better work than I've ever done. I can serve clients better. I'm way more creative than I've ever been. I'm coming up with better ideas consistently. And I can see that as I'm working with different clients. I can see the way that I'm benefiting what they're doing. And so in an interesting way, all of my ability to contribute isn't sort of locked up in one organization, but instead it's spread across multiple organizations. And it's diverse too. I work with churches a lot of the time. That's kind of the background that I come from. I was on staff at a church for a long time. And I'm helping them in their communications and graphic design and strategy and those kinds of areas. But I also took on other clients that were outside of that space. Worked for a solar client this year. It was awesome. It was a ton of fun to work on something that was outside of what I normally do. So the diversity of projects is incredible. Now I get this opportunity to say, what are the things that I care about? What are the industries I'm really interested in? I don't have to pick one. Let's say you love video games. You don't have to work at a gaming company. You can work with a lot of different organizations that are involved in different facets of gaming. Design a controller, wrap, or whatever. Like there's so many different things that you get the option to be able to invest in. So the diversity of what you get to work on. And as a creative, that's really, really helpful because I learned things from my solar client that I can apply to a church client or to my wife's cross-stitch YouTube channel that I branded recently for her. Working on branding for this effort right now. I'm pulling elements from all these different experiences and it's making me better as a creative. And so the big wins of freelance are, from my vantage point, they are overwhelming. I am as confused when I have conversations with people who are anti-freelance. I'm as confused about their decisions in life as they are mine. And so I just want you to hear that if you're feeling alone, if you're feeling like nobody gets it, there's a good chance that the people in your immediate circle won't get it. That's how it is for me. There are very few that I'm close to who get it. Most of them know the downsides, but they can't even wrap their minds around the upside. And so that's really kind of the second piece that I've been reflecting on this week that I wanted to emphasize here. When I first started my business, I was all alone because I was now leaving the institutions that all of the community was kind of trapped in. So if you're on staff in an organization, you get some degree of community. Once you leave that organization, it's all gone. And so I'm now leaving businesses or organizations and I'm alone, I'm on my own. And I was very fortunate that my mentor, she was the first mentor that I had in business, at least. I've had others previous to that, but she was incredibly helpful for me in understanding just the basic foundations of what I need to be building in my business to make it successful for the long term. And so that's a lot of what I'm building through Jump to Freelance is I'm taking a lot of those principles that were critically helpful for me and I'm retooling them a bit so that they fit you who is considering making the jump to freelance. And so that's what the community will be. That's also what the mentorship kind of side of things will be. But the real key for me here was that she introduced me to other businesses that were having really a similar focus in what they were doing. And I cannot tell you how critical that has been for me in terms of my success over the long term. There have been times where I've wanted to just be done with it. And then I'll hear from somebody else, and I went through some really similar and difficult times years ago. Really, really difficult, really hard. And I'm glad I weathered it because I made it to the other side. Man, okay, that's encouraging. Other people saying like, I also am having a hard time right now. What are some things we can work on together? How can we kind of tag team? Is there a way that we can work together in some capacity to be able to help move the ball down the field? These people are champions. When I post something on Facebook, they're the first ones to like it or to comment on it or to share it. It's this group of people that just really care so much about what I'm doing because we're part of the same community. We get it. We get the hardships, but we also get the upsides. That has been so important for me this week. As I have this conversation, waiting to get food at Thanksgiving, and freelance is kind of cast in a negative light. So if you're wrestling with those things, I just want to encourage you, find a community, find a group of people, put a comment below and I'll keep you in the loop as soon as this thing launches, if this community is the right, the thing that is helpful for you. But you really can't make this jump alone, especially when you have people in your life that they just don't understand it. I remember hearing something many, many years ago from Gary Vaynerchuk, and I thought it was a really interesting observation. He said, the people that are close to you in life that you love and that you care about, they may not get it. They may not be your advocates. Stop listening to their voice when it comes to matters of business, when it comes to matters of starting your own thing. Instead, start talking with people who get it. That makes so much sense, right? Like, you're not going to ask design advice from somebody who doesn't have a design background. It doesn't make any sense. When I'm working on a logo, I don't show my logo to people who aren't creatively minded. Like, if I don't respect their opinion on creative matters, they're not seeing the logo. That's how it goes. I'm launching it, right? Because those voices don't help make it better. And so if all you have in your life is these negative voices, these people who are not speaking against freelance, but really pretty resistant against the idea, you're not going to have the motivation and the encouragement. You're not going to be able to generate that enough on your own. You need an outside perspective. You need more people around you to rally around you, remind you of the win, the prize at the end of this on the other side, once you've made that jump. And so that's my encouragement to you, is find a community, be a part of this community, the one that I'm building right now, because I've just found it to be such a game changer for me. And what I'm experiencing on the other side, now in this world of doing my own thing, I wish that everyone saw the value that is on this side. And so if you're on the fence, if you're struggling to get motivated, if you're struggling to take the next step, it's worth it. Hear that from me, it is worth it. And my hope is that you can find a community of people that really can continually remind you that it's worth it every day that you face a challenge, And every day that you have a win, celebrate it with you. If you feel like nobody understands your dream to jump into freelance, I get it. But I want you to hear you're not alone. There are a lot of us out here who are already making decisions and taking steps. Some of us have already made the jump. Some of us are right on the brink. This is a place where you can get that encouragement. Subscribe to the channel and you'll get updates just like this. Encouragement to keep going, to keep taking that next step.